Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the podcast today, we have Lee Bridges. Lee, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on, Tom. Really appreciate it, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. Looking forward to it. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, no worries at all, mate. Really appreciate you having me on. My name's Lee. I suppose if you were boxing it, I am an author. I'm a musician. I run a couple of companies. I'm a bit of a pain in the butt. I have a stepson. Teach quite a lot, do public speaking quite a lot, do bits and pieces of lectures. So yeah, it's safe to say I've been around the block a few times. I've also made an insane amount of stupid mistakes in my life. So most of my work is trying to save other people from doing the same thing is probably where I'm at. How about yourself? What about you?
I can certainly relate to the many mistakes. So there's I have done a little bit of writing, and in one of the things that I wrote recently was I don't feel qualified based on the good things that I've done, but I feel like I'm qualified to tell people what they shouldn't do based on all the mistakes I've made.
Love that. Yeah, absolutely.
So
the thing is, it's very easy to just screw up constantly and not learn from it. But I think as long as you got your finger on the pulse enough to be like, right, okay, that was definitely a mistake. What can I do next time that's better? How can I save myself or someone else? Then that is definitely the way to go. Bit of progress.
Do you feel like you learn from the more painful lessons, or are you constantly on the lookout for things to learn from?
Honestly, I mean, I had a long, I don't know if I told you, but I had a long amount of time where I was a drug addict, and that was absolutely horrendous time in my life. So I hit some pretty bad mistakes within those years. To answer your question, I'm not necessarily on the lookout, but I'm very, very inquisitive. And I only picked up on this the other day. I heard it's a Shakespeare quote, and I don't know if he meant it in the same way that I've taken it. But I don't know if you've heard it, but it's that quote that's good or bad don't exist, but your mind makes it so. And I really, really like the idea of that, because I try to, if I stub my toe now, I try to be thankful that I didn't break my ankle. Do you know what I mean? And if I think it's as softly as it sounds, I just don't think anything can be bad. It's your reaction to it, and it's how you choose to be with it, and it's what lessons you choose to learn. You know, don't get me wrong, it's still, I still sort of scream when I stub my toe. But it's that sort of initial, right, what can I get out of it? You know, have I learned something from this? Yeah. How about yourself? What do you think?
It's a good one. I'm not sure I'm consciously aware of it. I feel like, to be honest, I can be a bit, for lack of a better term, pig-headed sometimes. And I struggle to learn from other people's, let's say, mistakes. I know that I've heard it said that it's wise to learn from other people's mistakes rather than your own. But I feel like the best lessons, the ones that really go in, are the ones where you think, yeah, I'm not doing that again. That was painful. Definitely not making that mistake.
Oh, 100%, mate. I mean, I remember my dad saying to me when I was a little kid, I've made all these mistakes so you don't have to make them. Why would you put your hand in the fire if you don't have to? But you're totally right. I think there's one thing, someone trying to push you in the right direction and sort of saying, look, maybe come at this from a different angle. But absolutely, the most painful ones are the ones you've got the most to get out of and the most to sort of learn from. Absolutely, totally agree.
One thing that you mentioned in one of your podcast episodes, which we may speak about today, is your Enough is Enough Day. Do you want to talk about that for a moment?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, users would call it a rock bottom, but I think everyone has it, and everyone has the potential to have it. And what I mean by Enough is Enough Day is that point. It might be the job that you hate. It might be the relationship that you're in that isn't working for you, or it might be the fact you might feel overweight, or you want to make some changes, or something like that. And there's kind of a point where you get to it and you just go, no more, not doing this again. No, I'm making the change. And some people have those moments where they get that initial gas up and they're excited about making the change and they're ready to go. And then it sort of wilts and it doesn't turn into anything. And they're the most cunning ones, because they feel like an enough is enough day, but they're not quite. They're just the initial sort of stroke the surface. But the genuine, like the kind of like, I nearly just killed myself, or like, you know, I'm absolutely screwed it with this thing, or I've let someone down, or I'm ashamed of something that I've done, or, you know, anything that's like really, really sort of close to your heart and means something and is part of your purpose. I think that it's quite a good thing to have those days. I mean, hopefully people don't have to have them. I just want to make myself better. And even if that's like one little brick at a time, I always sort of teach people like, you can kind of think of it as like you're building your house, and you're building a house with a roof on it. And the idea is that, like, with consistency, you don't have to be good at anything. You just have to be consistent. I'm terrible at most things, mate, but I am consistent. And so each day I put another little brick down, another little brick down. And I get to the point where it's like, initially it looks like a bit of a mess, and it's like, I don't know what that is. And then it turns into a wall, and then 4 walls. And you're like, oh my God, this is starting to look like something. And then you put your roof on, and there's an accomplishment there. And I think off the back of that, to start the build, you know, it's also important to get your foundations right, which is another separate topic. But before you start building, but before you get to the point where you want to start building your house, I think most of the time you have to have something. There has to be some little enough is enough, or I'm done with this. I don't want to feel like this anymore. You know, I might be anxious or feel lack of confidence, or my self-esteem's low. I want to ask that person out on a date, and I just can't get myself to do it. Or I want to start a business, and I'm scared about it, or I'm nervous about it. Or you know, I want to tell that person that they've wronged me. You know, all of those hard things. There has to be a point when you go, nah, screw it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I've had my time. I've had my enough is enough. I'm going to do it. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yeah, perfect sense. Well, the episode where I heard it was never make another excuse. So I kind of, just that on its own, I kind of like that title. But the exercise in that episode, where did you get that exercise from? Is it something you created?
Yeah, so the whole, but the funny thing about this is, mate, the reason why I find it very awkward when people ask me what I do, and it's and I tell you why, is because I'm not an author, but I've put a book out. So on paper, I'm an author. But in my mind, I'm like, I wrote that book to get myself off of drugs. Do you know what I mean? So it's a very different thing. But all the exercises in that book are things that I came up with myself, that just sort of helped me out. I taught in universities and colleges for nearly 10 years. And I found that the best results to get from students was by giving them tiny little exercises that don't feel like they're doing any work, where they're just so easy to implement. And they're just like, I always think of it, it's like, you know, little snowflake that turns into a snowball that turns into an avalanche kind of thing. It's like the little bricks that you're putting down that I was just talking about. So yes, that is one of my personal exercises, but I try and do everything like that. I just think if there's a way that, the reason I titled that chapter in the book, and also the podcast episode, Never Make Another Excuse Again, is because, like, if you make things so easy for yourself, like let's say that you want to train to run a marathon. So you have a macro goal, which is running the marathon, and that's the completion of that, and a bunch of micro goals. So your micro goals are like the daily things you do, the consistent things you do to get to the point that you can complete a marathon. So if for me, if I was talking about this sort of the concept of never making another excuse again, if the idea of going from 0 to 100, right, run the marathon now, is like, that's insane. No, hardly anyone can do that. And if they can, they're going to be injured afterwards. So the way that I always do things for myself, because I know what I'm like, I'm a human, I'm a pain in the butt. So I have to do things where I get these little mini PBs each day, tiny little things that like help me out, where I've got no excuse not to just do them. So with that in mind, if I was running a marathon, which I wouldn't do because my legs are they're ridiculously long. I look like some kind, I don't even know. Maybe I'd like to go with gazelle, but I don't think that's what I look like at all. But my micro goals, if I was running a marathon, would be something that's impossible for me to excuse myself from. For instance, my first day I would run 0.1 of a kilometre. My second day I would run 0.2 of a kilometre, and I'd add 0.1 of a kilometre on each day, because that's I can't excuse myself from that. Like anyone can do that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Those tiny little steps. But the thing is, when you do that for long enough and you compound it and you get to the point where they stack up, that 0.1 that you ran on the first day is now 0.2, is now 0.3, is now a marathon. And like, that's the bit I'm interested in, is all those tiny little wins that turn into one massive win. Does that make sense?
I have actually heard the start of that goal being, all I need to do is put my running gear on, go outside, and then come back inside again.
Yeah, I love that.
Not even 0.1.
Love that. That's yeah. This is it, man. It's like the thing is, but I think for most people, because I had this for so long with students, where when I was at the college, I was teaching sort of 16 to 21 year olds, and all of them are anxious, all of them are freaked out, all of them are unconfident, all of them don't think they're good enough, and that's a terrible way to live your life. I don't want that for anyone. Do you know what I mean? That's not what I think that this is about. And so when things are big and scary, that makes people back into a corner, and it makes them even more anxious and more freaked out and more unconfident. And really, I think if you give someone like a little, a tiny little thing to tick off their to-do list, it's not like write a 100-page essay. Just write me a half a page, but then do the same tomorrow. Then do the same tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of really easy setup where, where you just give yourself no other option. Then, well, I might as well just do it because it's easy. Do you know what I mean?
So the questions that you ask in the episode are like getting you to rank yourself from 0 to 100 in terms of percentages. Do you still use that for yourself? And what did your own assessment, what did that tell you about yourself?
Yeah, no, really, really good question. So yes, I absolutely do still use that on myself. The reason being, and what you're talking about is it's a bunch of questions that I sometimes chop and change depending on who my clients are or what I'm doing for myself, or very variant on the situations. But they're very top level questions, and the reason that I do them and that I ask people is one, and this blows my mind every time, is that one, that most people don't ask themselves these questions. They don't know if they're happy. They don't know if they're productive. They don't know if they're confident. They don't know if they're fearful. They don't know if their anxiety level is through the roof or anything like that. It's really, really important to get to the point where you're aware of what you're doing and you're aware of where you're at, so that you know where you want to run to and where you want to go. So yes, I do still use them myself. And the other reason that I ask people to do this, and I put it in the book and I put it on the podcast, is just so that it proves that this stuff works. I think there's a lot of, I've got this right bee in my bonnet about sort of like gurus and like, self-help moguls and stuff like that. And I'm definitely not one of those people. I'm also not someone that will sell a course because, I'm like, here's a, you could make $3,000 from working at home for like, it's not my bag. Because the only people getting rich off that are the people selling the course. The course doesn't necessarily work. So with that in mind, I want to prove my results. So whenever I start working with someone, or where, right at the start of the book, right at the start of the podcast, I ask these questions, because then you can ask yourself the exact same questions in 2 podcast time, or 5 podcast time, or a few chapters time. And if you're not getting anywhere and they're not changing levels, if your doubtful level hasn't gone down, if your belief in the future has gone up, like all these things, if it's not working, then you need to bail and not listen to me ever again. Do you know what I mean? If it is working, then it's like, cool, honestly, I'm actually getting a result here. I can, I feel better. It's giving yourself that kind of like that body scan. Do you know what I mean? Where you're like, right, where am I at? Where do I want to get to? So that's kind of why I do it. I think that there's I'm doing extremely well not to swear on this podcast in the middle of the day, Tom. I really am. I think that there's a lot of charlatans out there, and a lot of people that will say one thing and do another. I think there's also a lot of people out there that kind of, they're not interested in the actual, like, dude, I swear down on my mother's eternal soul, I love people succeeding. I get a kick out of it. There is no part in me that feels, I might get that initial like jealousy that everyone gets, where they're like, oh my God, that's really cool, I wish I had that. But it's not because I want to take it from someone, it's because I want that thing as well, because it looks awesome, or I think the experience is good. But I get gassed up on people doing well. I love it. And there's enough, from my point of view, there's enough wealth out there for everyone. There's enough happiness out there for everyone. There's enough, you like, anyone can do this stuff. So if some idiot like me can kind of, turn it around from where I was. I mean, I nearly died a few times, like, badly. Like, I was in a right terrible spot, mate. And it's, if I can turn that around, I know that other people can do it. And I made it really easy for myself to do it. So yeah, I'm not sure if that, I mean, do you do anything where you kind of, you sort of, I suppose, like, just see where you're at, see where you're heading kind of thing? Like, where are you off to on your journey?
I tend to benefit from tunnel vision, and I enjoy completion. So if you're clear on what you want to try and get done, and you don't let anything else in a way. And I'm not necessarily saying it's a positive thing, but only in relation to this topic of achievement. So like if you're only willing to focus on this one thing, you get tunnel vision and you keep going until you're done with what you're trying to achieve. That's how I do it. But I have learned also from some self-development people that maybe sell courses, and that they wouldn't necessarily put it this way, but from taking different people's approaches to things, I have learned that there's an element of subjectivity there, meaning that what's right for one person may not necessarily be right for another. So I don't think
Absolutely.
there's one path to success. But I also think, to come back to what you said about the gurus and courses and stuff, I do think there's something which to highlight there. My opinion is that it's the claims that they make. So if you take this course, you'll get this result. So if it's a wild claim, then you need to be very careful of that. And then also, I think that where the price doesn't match the value that you'll get. So like if it's a course about, I don't know, starting an online business and it's $2,000 or something, well, you can get an awful lot for your money for $2,000. So I think that's the two things that I tend to look out for in terms of selling courses, because my opinion is like courses in and of themselves, I think, are generally positive. But if someone's willing to say that you'll get this great thing from taking their course, or it far exceeds what it, it's just information at the end of the day, then that's one
absolutely
thing.
Agree.
Yeah,
but
I really wanted to ask you about one thing,
no.
if that's okay, before I forget.
Yeah,
and feel free to come back to that point if you want to. But you mentioned a couple of times about the about being a drug addict, and I always like to ask, because I feel like there are probably other people in that position, and I feel like you've got a unique experience because you've already been through it and you've come out the other end of it. So if you did want to pass on some information and someone was suffering in the way that you were, what would you say to them?
That's a very, very, very hard question to answer, and I'll tell you why. Is because I can only speak. Something you said a minute ago really rang true, because I absolutely believe that there isn't one path for everyone. And that actually it is very, very easy to be like, this is how I do it, and this is the way to do it, so you guys should do the same thing, which is ridiculous, because everyone's in a completely different boat, with different nature, different nurture, different surroundings, different, they're compartmentalized differently. There's so many different things that suggestion, in my opinion, is probably the best thing. And I mean, I always mention this in all of my work, is that, if I tell you X, it doesn't mean it's going to give you X. It might give you Y. It might give you 3 squared. It might give you that weird little ampersand thing. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. The idea is that if you take it and it helps you, that's brilliant. That's awesome. If it doesn't help you, then bail. Go and try and find something that does. So the reason that that's hard for me to answer is because I don't want to. I can only speak about my own experience. And I hope, and yeah, I'm trying to word this right. I think I don't want to offend anyone by what I'm saying, because there's definitely people that will have been and unfortunately currently are in a lot worse positions than I was. And I mean, I was in a terrible position. It was absolutely horrendous. But if you put me on the scale of how bad it could be, and not to sort of darken up your podcast, but it's not like I ever got raped or human trafficked. It's not like, there's a whole deep level of where you can go and why you can end up on drugs, and end up on, in different places and stuff like that. But if I was trying to answer your question, the best bit of advice that I think I would want to give to myself, and it's so contrived and soppy and obvious, but it is that you can be better. You absolutely can be better. As soon as you give up that hope of being able to be a better person, even if it is one brick at a time, even if it does take you a year or 2 or 5, even if you fail sometimes, and it's kind of like watching the stock market, where it never does that or that. It's just, but it sometimes is going up over the longevity, and sometimes it's going down, but it's always going to have those little spikes. So it's that you can be better. I try and I speak to a lot of the sort of not-for-profit work I do, is with drug addicts or ex-users or users currently, alcoholics, and then a lot of people with mental health issues and stuff like that. And one of the biggest things that comes up that I think that I would like this to be televised more, and I would like this to be more portrayed in the media, because it's not at all, and it's extremely bad. There is a massive lack of education behind drug users. There really is, amongst a bunch of other things. I know we could stack up a bunch of different subjects here, but with that one particular one, because you asked the question, I think that the majority of the time you don't end up on drugs for any other reason than you are having a terrible time. There might be something that's happened to you. There might be something that you're going through. There might be, and I'm not talking about bunning some weed. I mean, like, seriously having a serious drug problem. I think that I've just never met anyone that's going through that doesn't have a story that's extremely sincere, and they're extremely misunderstood a lot of the time. I do a fair bit of work with when my office is on the high street in Brighton, so I bump into homeless folk all the time. I always have a chat, because I always have a chat with everyone. I'm literally that annoying guy that if you're working behind the till at Tesco, then you've got me rabbiting at you for like 20 minutes. But I don't know if you can tell. But and
makes you a good podcast guest.
Well, so they say. I speak to these. I speak to anyone. But the thing with like a lot of homeless people, and the reason I bring it up is that, mate, the misunderstanding there is insane. It's insane. You don't end up on the street for there's. I don't even know. I'm guessing a percentage, but I don't even think 0.5% of homeless people go, do you know what? I'm up for this. This would be a right bubble. There's some terrible stories right there, man. That's effing hard. That is like, nobody wants to do that. You've got to be I'll mask that. I'll cover myself up. I'll put myself in cotton wool because that's what I need to do, because then the world can't hurt me. And I see this a lot, and I hear this a lot, and I've experienced this myself. To the degree that I experienced it, and I think the thing that got me through all of it was just that, like, having that bit of support where someone's like, come on, mate, like, you can do this, you've got this, and I always told myself I can be better. Whether I was a lot of the time back then, is definitely questionable. But I think a lot of the time there's so many people where the help's not there. You've got, I won't go off on a massive one about the media, but I frigging hate the media, the mainstream media. I have such a problem with it. And one of the reasons being is one of the businesses I run works in marketing. I understand marketing. I know how it works. I know, it's like you're saying with these, we call them bro marketers. So it's the kind of guys like you're talking about with the courses where they can't, where they're saying this will happen and it won't. Or like, invest $2,000 in a course when you can set up a website. You can get a frigging web dev for $1,000 a month. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever it is that you're going to do. So I think that there's so much misinformation. It's like the sex education teacher of your school that hasn't got laid in 20 years, or the person that comes in to tell you, in your school class where they're telling you about drugs and they've never smoked a spliff. Like, I used to have a business teacher at my high school who'd never run a business. What's that? I don't understand. I don't get what that is. Why? So I've got someone on the TV telling me a load of stuff, and then I can see with my own eyes and my own experiences that something else is going on. And, talk to a homeless person, for instance, like, sit down and actually listen to them. There's a story there every single time. They're not scum. They're not terrible people. They're not, do you know what I mean? Or know more than anybody else. So to long-windedly answer your question, mate, the bit of advice I would give is that you can be better. You can be better. You can do it. Do it, and do it all at once. But whatever can do it, you absolutely can.
So it's essentially encouragement. They need a little bit of encouragement. Would you say that's a fair summary? I
think potentially a lot of encouragement, depending on how severe it is. But also it's like the thing with mental health, is that it's because it's the elephant in the room a lot of the time. If you've got, say, really high anxiety levels, or you're really depressed, most of the time you hold it to yourself because you don't want to talk about it, because it freaks you out and it makes you more anxious, or it makes you more depressed, or whatever. So there's a massive amount of education that would be helpful on a lot of topics that there isn't. I mean, I can there's a lot of, I can find out about sport quite easily in like any newspaper or on the TV or whatever, but I don't hear about mental health that much. Not to the level. If you look at the statistics of how many people are on antidepressants, how many people consider themselves depressed, how many people, these are statistics. How many people are overweight? How many people are like, these statistics are like, they're there. You can read them up, right? So for me, it's this kind of, there surely should be a bit more talking about it. It's like that thing as well. Like I get this a lot. Like, say if you go to down the pub or the bar with your mates, and someone comes in and they're like, on a really bad day, I can't afford my rent this month, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's got their back. Everyone's like, oh my God, that sucks, man. Like, how can we help you out? Blah, 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 blah. You turn up at the same very bar and say you just closed a 50 grand deal and you tell people about that. Or you've just bought yourself a nice new car or something. People are like, oh my God, who's this guy? Who the hell does he think he is? Like, what's all this about? And the thing is, it's like these weird sort of splits in society where one thing's okay to talk about, but one thing's not. And for me, I think, you're talking about freedom of speech. I think I just think people should be more honest. I think that's my point here. And what I've tried to do, I'm writing the second book. I was writing about this literally a couple of days ago. And I was trying to figure out why I started writing, because like I told you, I'm not an author. If you compare me to an author, everyone would be like, who the hell is this guy? But I realized that I write because I can't bullshit myself when I'm writing. I'm honest, because what I do is I'll write something down, and then when I go to edit it, I'm like, that was ego. Why did you write that thing? That's not real. That's not real you. That's what you want other people to think of you. And then I'll edit it again, and I'll do that about 20 times, and then I'll finally get to the little nugget that's true, that's honesty, that's real me. And I think that this kind of rings true with most things. I think we're all bullshitting each other. I think, you can't, adverts are rife, marketing is rife. People know how to have an agenda and how to push people a certain way and sell them. And there's a benefit to someone somewhere, but there's a lot of people that are suffering. We've had it with all of this. Like one of the companies I run is a brokerage. So we deal with businesses that are looking for business funding. And oh my God, some of the stories, mate. I've got another company I had is going for insolvency at the moment, and we got killed overnight. Absolutely heartbreaking. I built that business up I bootstrapped that from scratch. 7 years I was running that company for, and all just overnight, completely gone. I see it as a lesson to learn from, and I genuinely feel humbled and of benefit that I've gone through that. But some of the stories we're hearing on the phone of other companies where, fortunately for me, I'd set up a couple of things, and I've got the book thing going, and I still public speak and stuff like that, so I have an income. But we're talking to people at the moment where they're not looking for business funding because they're trying to expand. They're not looking for business funding because they want to buy new machinery. They're trying to keep their staff alive. They're trying to get payroll. And you've got people where there's family, like people's families, and they've just all lost their jobs. It's not being reported. I don't see it on the net. I'm literally like a hawk. It's not there. So there's a lot of things that I think the open discussion thing is really important. And I know I've gone off on a bit of a tangent here, so I do apologize. But I think it's all kind of the same thing. It's just, people lie to themselves so often that it gets to the point where you don't know what's real, and you start to believe your own lies, and then the cycle continues. And honestly, it's that kind of get naked in front of everyone kind of analogy, where it's like, of course it's hard and weird and awkward, but you do it the first time and then no one cares how big your dick is or how funny your boobs look or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean?
One of the things which I spoke to someone in my last episode about, and he had 3 life lessons, and one of them was be yourself. And it's kind of touched on what you're saying about, just be honest, because, it's better that way, essentially. And I was wrestling with it in the sense that I kind of feel like societally, we have like a filter. So if you're feeling like you're in a bad mood or something, and you're like, I shouldn't say that, so I'm not going to say it, but like being yourself, I interpret it, you have to say that thing in a way, because that's what you're thinking. You're thinking something negative and probably not very nice for that other person, but you filter it out. And I was kind of wrestling with those two things. I mean, it's not related to anything other than I'm just wondering what your opinion and what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, I suppose let me think about that. I think that what I'm trying to do in myself, and I don't know if this is an experiment that's going to end well, but what I'm trying to do in myself is get to the point where, and I'm see I'm already freaking myself out because I'm going to say something and my ego's going to get to the point where I genuinely don't care whether someone's eyes are a certain color, their skin's a certain color, they're this sex, that sex, whatever. I'm trying to get to a point where I'm so calm with everything that I don't get angry, and that I don't, and that I don't, that if I am being myself, then it's just a pleasurable thing for everyone involved, kind of thing. And I do know how that sounds. I absolutely do. Again, my ego's getting right in the way at the moment. But I think that I think that there's I suppose I'm doing this off the dome, so I might get this wrong, but like, I suppose imagine like you've got a pyramid. It's trying to work out whereabouts you are on the pyramid, and nobody seems to know. So say right at the top of the pyramid is like the gold. That's the bit that everyone wants, the absolute harmony, the peace, like it's like frigging walking around the Garden of Eden, and everyone's genuinely happy. Everyone genuinely wants what's best for everybody else. Everyone is in this like pure, awesome place, and it's just amazing, right? Say that that's the top of the pyramid. I'm trying to work out where the hell I am in relation to that. And I'm also trying to work out how I get there. And I think to sort of answer your question, I think that being yourself is definitely part of that. But I think that it goes a bit deeper. It's kind of like learning, it's trying to learn who your true self is, not just being yourself. Because I think like myself now is based off of years and years of my nature and my nurture and, you know, my surroundings and all of that stuff. And I don't really, I'm trying to work out who my true person is. Does that make sense? Is that a bit weird?
Are you saying that if you were being your true self, then you wouldn't have those feelings in the first place?
I don't know that that's the case, but that is what I'm saying. I'm trying to work it out. I'm trying to get to a point where I know that answer, if that makes sense.
Okay, interesting.
What about you? What do you think?
I've got to be honest, I was struggling with it. So, you know, I took it to its extreme. So there's a philosophical exercise where you say, like, if someone puts forward a premise, which is like, be yourself, well, then you take that to the extreme and see whether that is universal. And so I was thinking, if a psychopath wanted to be themselves, you know, maybe they had a filter on, and then someone told them to be themselves and they turned into a true psychopath. That probably wouldn't be a good thing. But you're essentially saying that they're not their true selves, if that's the case. I had no idea we were going to talk about these things.
Bro, like the thing is, whenever I do podcasts, I just don't know if it is what it is, right? I just don't like planning anything because I sort of that's not for a lack of respect. In fact, quite the opposite. I always do a bit of DD. I always check out who I'm talking to and find out about them. But I never really prepare anything myself because I quite like the way conversations go. And I think when it's just no holds barred, and you know, there's something beautiful about not really knowing someone and having a quite in-depth conversation with them. Yeah. You know, it's that because you can chill with your friends and family, and you kind of know what you're going to get, and they kind of know what they're going to get, and you know. But I quite like the fact that it's like, you know, you're either going to turn this off and be like, oh my God, what a douchebag. Or you're going to be like, okay, I could go for a beer with that guy, or we'll never talk again, or we'll be best mates. I don't know what's going to happen. But I like the openness, and I think it's, I'd like to, yeah. But your thing about the psychopath is quite interesting, mate, because I think, see, this is the thing. I'm going to be completely honest. I have two kind of theories on this. On one side, I'm like that I don't think that anyone is meant to have those traits. Surely not. Surely, like, love and all of that good stuff feels good. It's like, surely that's why we're here. Surely, like, there must be more to life than, you know, bombing people and frigging, you know, treating people terribly and doing evil, horrible, sinister things. Surely that is not right because it doesn't feel right. On the other side of it, which is the battle between what I'm thinking, I have the kind of order and chaos, where I think like, right, is it that it's on a spectrum and you have to have this to have that? Would you be able to understand what this felt like, hate felt like if you didn't have love, and vice versa and stuff like that. And then there's all these little metas in the middle where there's like, it depends who you're listening to. So something I try and do, which I will bring up because it might be handy for your listeners, is I have these particular 8 things that I do. This is personal for me, and I've figured them out. I always forget 1 or 2 because I literally, as a drummer, I get to 4 and then I go back to 1. So sometimes I forget a couple. But I bring them. It's taken me up to now to get used to them. I might change them when I move forward, but they've been there for a year or so. And if I miss any one of these 8 things, I'm not my best person. I'm not as happy. I'm not as sort of excited. I don't feel as wholesome, and I don't feel like I'm doing my purpose properly. So a few of these things like health and fitness. And these are things I do every day. If I miss one of them, I feel screwed up. So I'll exercise every day. I'll look after my nutrition most of the time. But if I have a bad meal, if I have a bad weekend, and I do feel bad after it, kind of thing. So I educate every day. I make sure that I'll read something or I'll learn something. I'll spend on an average day. I feel like I've missed years on this. So when I got to about 25, 26, I just started shedding books, like just sessioning like a good. And I'll do a book a week most weeks. And then I'll listen to books on Audible and stuff like that. Even to the point I'm quite bizarre with it. So like if I go to the toilet, like just for a wee, I'll just flick my phone on and I'll continue listening to where I was, kind of thing. So I just try and keep that going all the time. Other things I do, I try and hit my purpose every day. So that might be something to do with work. That might be something to do with, but something where I've laid another brick down, something where I feel like I've progressed. And I have a few other things that I do in these 8. And the reason I bring it up is because like every day I'm learning something new. So if we'd have had this conversation yesterday, I was listening to one of the books I'm rereading 12 Rules, Jordan Peterson at the moment, which I read when it first came out, and then I wanted to revisit it. And obviously he's got some insane ideas or completely non-insane ideas on some of the stuff we're talking about. But then at the same time, I'm reading another book, I can't remember who it's by. It's a business book called 5 Steps Ahead. Really, really decent book. Where he's got some ideas that completely counter some of the stuff we're talking about. Some of them go with it. So the point I'm making is, the more I learn and the more I sort of unearth, the more I'm like, oh shoot, that thing I said yesterday, I don't think that anymore. I'm not. I feel like I've tried to level up a little bit. And so I don't mean like what I'm saying. I always try and mean what I'm saying. I'm always trying to be heartfelt and again honest. But I sort of like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm trying to get to the top of that pyramid, trying to level up and trying to, So I imagine you could ask some of the same questions again in maybe a week, maybe a month, and I'd be like, oh, do you know what? Yeah, I still agree with that. But I actually read this thing the other day, or I saw this thing the other day, and that's sort of changed my opinion on that. I'm very open to suggestion. I'm not susceptible, but I'm very, very open to. I have no problem with someone questioning my beliefs. I never get my back up. All I'll try and do is be like, oh, extra education there. Come on, tell me what you've got. You know what I mean? I like that. I'm trying to get better.
Well, it sort of reminds me of evidence-based. So, there's no point in sticking to your guns when you've got a good counter argument. So, I'm the same way.
Yeah, this is it. And I mean, the thing is as well, it's like, I don't know. I like the fact we haven't brought up the C word yet, and I quite enjoy not having to talk about that. But there's so much stuff going on the news with everything at the moment, right? And for the last year, it has been just insane. And the thing is, it's that kind of thing where someone gets wrongly, let's say, for instance, someone gets wrongly accused of something. If someone that has never done anything bad in their life, really salt of the earth, like decent person, and someone, I don't know, calls rape on them or says that they murdered someone or that they broke into a bank, whatever it is, and that person gets investigated and then people talk about that, that's hard to shake that. So that's hard to get rid of that. But the fact is there's new evidence and you find out new evidence and then that person might be like, oh, they didn't do that. And then everyone kind of like, yeah, but you know, and they've still got that bad taste in their mouth. People find it hard to let go of something that they believe to then go to the next level. And I think there's an element of stubbornness there. I think there's an element of people love to be right. I don't know what that's about. I used to work with this guy. I'm not going to name names, but I used to work with this guy, and we were like bestie mates for a long time. But he had this thing about being right. He would literally like, I just didn't understand it because it would take him more time to do anything, you know, and stuff just wouldn't be done, but at least he'd be right, kind of thing. And I remember there's certain situations where, like, I'm hands up like every single time. Like, that was me. Sorry, I did that. I'm so sorry. How do I fix it? How can I make this better? How do I not do that again? But it's sort of, he'd do that thing when, like, and I remember it, we came out of a cafe once and someone pulled over and was like, oh, sorry, boys, do you know how to get to wherever it was? And he was like, oh, yeah. You're right. So you want to go up that way, right? So yeah, turn around, like left at the roundabout. And I was like, mate, you haven't got a clue. Why are you what are you doing? And like, we were talking about it afterwards. And I was like, why do you do that? And he was like, well, no. And even then he couldn't admit the fact that he was just trying, he just wanted to be right. He just wanted to feel, I guess, I suppose, I don't know what it is, but I think people want to feel that kind of like, yeah, okay, me 1, you 0 kind of thing. And I don't think we're going to get very far as a human race by being like that. I think that, and don't get me wrong, there's so many people that aren't like that, and there's so many amazing humans. That's not what I'm saying, but I do think that there's a kind of weird vibe about trying to know it all, and how could we ever know it all? I mean, like neuroscience and what the brain does, plus the fact that what the frig is consciousness. Do you know what I mean? We're on this weird ball that's spinning through space. Nobody knows what's going on. Literally nobody knows what's going on, and everyone wants to have an opinion on it, and it blows my mind. I just think it slows you down. I think the best thing to do is be that little 5-year-old inquisitive kind of like, no, anything's possible. I want to learn. I want to soak it up like a sponge. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. There's a good thing that I use in relation to that topic. So, you know, people can get, if they feel like something conflicts with their existing beliefs, they get more emotional. So if you find yourself getting emotional about a particular point, that's like an alarm for you where you need to be your most rational. So, and I like the idea of knowing more than one side of the argument. So I'm not sure if it applies to the driving around, but let's say you've got a particular opinion on, I don't know, the Earth moving around the sun or whatever it might be. So you think that way, but until you examine the other side of the argument, you don't know for sure, and therefore you examine both sides, and then the best evidence is what your conclusion should be. And I kind of like that principle of, whenever you feel emotional about a particular thing, that's when you need to be your most rational and evidence-based.
I love that. And I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think the body's very good at throwing up signs, but the problem is it just doesn't tell you how. So people freak out when they don't know the how, and they don't know how. Like, you get a frigging flat pack from IKEA and there's no instructions. I mean, it's bad enough with instructions, right? But you get it with no instructions and you're like, the hell, what? Like, what am I going to do? So it's kind of like, yeah, I totally agree with that. But the body will give you signs. But because it won't tell you how, people don't often run with it. But I think it's that. It's like the thing about fear. I write about this a lot. And the idea, not that I think there's 2 types of fear. Well, there's probably more, but just for top level, I think there's 2 types of fear. There's the fear that is completely warranted. Like there's a shark in your bath and there's a frigging tiger in your bathroom. Don't go in the bathroom, right? Do you know what I mean? Just bail. That's not a good thing for you to do. The fear is telling you not to do that. But then there's the other type of fear, the fear that's like, I want to ask that person out on a date, but what if she says this, and what if that happens? Or, you know, I want to start a business, but I don't know how to incorporate a company. Or I want to join a karate class, but everyone else would be better than me. There's that kind of fear that kind of like, paralyzes you. But that for me is always a sign. I use it as a green light. Whenever I feel like that, that's my body going, go for it. Go and do it, because on the other side of that, that's where your win is. And as soon as you start to pick up on these little things that your body does, that feeling in your gut when it tells you, it always tells you, you know deep down what's wrong and what's right. You know if you're lying to yourself or to other people, if you're mindful enough to sit there and go through it and to think about it. And I just think that it's very easy to ignore stuff, and we're covered in distractions as well. It's like, even if you take your phone away, having a phone is like having 300 bits of string tied to your body, and at any point someone can just pull one of those bits of string, and you can be in the matrix frigging doing your thing and you're all over it, and then what, oh yeah, like, do you know what I mean? It's there's distractions everywhere. It's very hard to keep clear, to keep clarity. Is very, very, very hard. But I think when you do, and you spend time with yourself and you spend time trying to figure yourself out, this is why I think self-improvement is such a interesting industry. And I use the word industry, which is kind of weird, I suppose, with self-improvement in some respects, but it is a weird industry because it is a growth industry. It's massively growing year on year on year on year, but it almost at the same time, it's that, like, if you want to get big muscles, work out, do weights, right? If you want to have a strong mindset, and you want to know how to pick yourself back up every time you fail, because you will fail, because that's life, because that's what happens, then you need to strengthen your brain, right? So then you go down the self-development route. And I think it's that sort of, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, aren't I? All right, let me bring that home. Point being, right? Well done, Lily. Point being, my kid, or literally my stepson, always says this to me. We'll be having a waffle and he'll just be like, "You've done that thing again. Seriously, Lily, you've just stop it." My point being is that I think if we spend a bit of time with ourselves, a bit of daily time, a bit of, like, consistent, like, I'm doing this for me, selfishly, but because it's not selfish when you do it, because you're being a better person. You're turning yourself into someone that is selfless and is better for other people to hang around with, and has, offers more opportunities, preaches reciprocity, kind of does the right things. But you can't get that without working on it. I mean, bro, you run marketing, right? So you know what I'm talking about. You have to put time and effort into that. There is a constant amount of bricks you're having to lay, and more so, there's a bunch of crap that comes up all the time. Oh, Google's suspending my account. Balls. Now what do I do? Or this, this client wants this, but now they're saying they want this, and I've just put loads of work into it. I've started running this campaign. Oh, and actually, like, I've just realized that the demographics wrong. Whatever it is, whatever any of those things are, you know full well that you either deal with them and you crack on, or you don't. And to get to be the former, and to go, right, I'm going to pick myself back up. That's fine. I'll speak to that client. I'll change this. I'll do that. No worries, Google, for the 15th millionth time this year, you've suspended my account. I'll get it open. Whatever it is, to be that person, you have to work on yourself. You have to work on your brain. You have to make it stronger. I genuinely think all this stuff is like, the concept is so simple. If you want something, you work for it consistently. Often. The problem is that, and this is why I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle for me to get as far with my book stuff as I want to, is because the way that I teach isn't sexy. There's nothing sexy about it. It's very matter of fact and very, very honest. It's just do stuff over and over and over again, pick yourself up, do it again, pick yourself up, do it again. Surround yourself with people that will help you get back up. Put yourself in situations where it's easier to get back up, and then do it again. And then get it wrong, and then do it again, and then get it wrong, and then do it again. And it's just going, that's life. And I've learned to get to the point where I'm like, I think that this is how it feels. This is life, right? Stuff happens all the time. Really bad stuff happens out of the blue. It's that sort of like fortune that just sometimes just creeps up on you, and you're having the best day ever. And it's like, oh, my best friend just died. Right. Okay. What do I do with that? That's not, I'm a millionaire. I've got my island in the sun, but my friend's just died. Do you know what I mean? It's like at any point, anything terrible can happen, and you can't control that stuff. So the stuff you can control, why the hell wouldn't you try and control it and do the best with it and make yourself the best you can be and be the best to other people? And, like, just really practice that, just love and just being cool and just being a dude. do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I was to come back to what you just said about the way you teach. I think if you're telling the truth, the truth is very liberating for people. So I'm sure maybe you're referring to people who like do parables and that sort of thing. I think if you're getting the truth, that's the most beneficial for people.
Absolutely. I have a friend, a very, very, very dear friend of mine, and he always struggled. If he listens to this, he's probably gonna hate this. I'm sorry, mate. But he always really struggled with, you know, when someone's really unconfident and they overcompensate for it, and everyone knows that that's the case, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And that's not the exact situation for the person I'm talking about. Their situation is much more that they've never really opened up to anyone. So there's those two things I think you can kind of spot sometimes. So with my friend, with the latter of those, I remember having this extremely open conversation with this person once, and I was so open. Like, some of the stuff I was saying is like, it's so embarrassing. You would, you know, from the point of view of, like, we were talking about some of our like, it was to do with girls from years ago and some of the mistakes I've made, and I could tell them, the more I was being honest and the more I was telling them about my experience, the more he was going, oh my God, but that happened to me too. I didn't think that happened to everyone. I didn't think this education or assisting. And like that. I find it quite interesting that you just, as soon as you're honest with people be honest back. And it feels good. It feels really, really good to be an honest person. And it feels really, really good for someone to be honest with you. And I think, like, my BS meter's got better over the years, but it's, you know, sometimes I get stitched up sometimes. I have some people that tell me one thing and do another thing. I have some people that promise me X and then don't even give me alphabet. You know, they give me something else or nothing. You know, and then I know that I must do that to people sometimes too. And I'm trying to pick that to pieces. I'm trying to work out when I'm doing that and why I'm doing that, and how I can prevent myself doing that. But yeah, I think it's an odd one. It's definitely an odd one, but I do sort of all encompassing. I think that it's work on yourself daily, keep pushing a little bit further, expect the fact that it's going to be really hard sometimes, and which is why it's very important to try and surround yourself with good people, the kind of people that you could, like, you know, I love that idea of someone pitching you an idea that is hard for them to say because they're embarrassed about how grandiose it is. Do you know what I mean? So I do this thing quite often where when I have a client, first of all, we'll talk about like about goals. So I'll say, okay, you tell me, give me. Normally I do like 10 or 20. I write mine down every day. That works for me. That doesn't work for everyone. But normally I'll say, like, give me 3 goals and make them as big as possible, and they have to be completely selfish. You can't give me a goal like, I want my family to be happy. That's really, really profound and awesome, but that's not what this is about. So you give me a goal, or 2 or 3 goals where they make them as big as possible and make them desires, make them things that you really want, make them things that are just like that really get you going, like your purpose kind of things. And they'll always write them out or say them, and they arguably are extremely small goals. And I'll say, why have you wrote that small? Because I know that that's not what you're thinking. And after a bit of digging, you'll start to get to the actual goals, and you'll actually get to the point where people are giving their real desires. And they're saying things like, I'd love to cure cancer. That's a hard thing to say. Do you know what I mean? I want to go to Mars. Someone said that. Someone's on their way. Do you know what I mean? But if you try saying that to most of the people you hang around with, depending on your circle, most of them will laugh, or it will be like, oh, crazy so-and-so again. So it's so important to surround yourself with people that go, all right, cool. How are we going to get to Mars? How can I help you? What can I do for you? Those people that have got your back, and they're kind of, you know, and you can do the same for them. I think that's really important. Have I gone off on another tangent, Tom? I think I have.
Well, it segues nicely, though. What are your goals, Lee?
What are my goals at the moment?
Yeah.
I can make this, again, my ego's kicking in. Do you want me to tell you the ones I wrote this morning?
Whichever goals that you think will be valuable.
Well, if I tell you, these will be the most, what the hell? Hang on a sec. Pop-up blocker. I'll tell you the ones I wrote this morning, even though I don't even know what this is. Even though I'm going to find it a bit awkward to do it. Hang on a sec. I'm just loading this. The reason, so I do this every day, and sometimes they change. They change quite a lot, actually. And then sometimes there's goals where they'll be the same. There's some goals where they'll be the same and they'll keep coming up. which I find quite interesting. And they might come up for a year, and then and then I won't think about them for a while. And then there's some where they just like, I'm just looking at one here where I don't know, it just came out this morning, I just wrote it. I'll tell you them in a sec. But the other thing that I find quite interesting about this, I started doing daily goal practice 4 or 5 years ago, something like that, off the back of a book I read that got me really excited. And I know that daily goal practice doesn't work for everyone. For me, it's the idea of like, right, I'm writing it like I've done. So this is another thing I do. I always write them. See, this is where my ego's coming in. I write them like I've done them. So it's so much harder to say them out loud, right? It's so hard to say them out loud. But let's go. So my first one from this morning, I am a best-selling author, selling over 10 million copies and hitting the New York Times bestseller list. The books that I've written have all been translated into 25 plus languages and have won multiple awards. That was thing number one. Thing number two is I give away 20% of my yearly income, which amounts to over 2 million quid. That's the amount I want to give away. So you can work out what I want my income to be. This is from this morning. These will change. Number three, I'm a household name and run a YouTube channel with an insane viewership of over 10 million subs. I know how stupid these sound, right? Just FYI, I know how insane this is. Number four. Thank you. My podcast has hit over 3,000 episodes and features regular noteworthy guests who are top of their games. And then in brackets, I've put Joe Rogan, watch out. Then the last one is I've sold my second company for 100 million I've sold my second company for over 100 million and have benefited all of the shareholders with at least 7 figures each, is what I wrote this morning. So they were 5 goals that I wrote this morning. But like, if you compare them to the days before, some of them are the same. I often write something to do with books, something to do with writing. I'm just reading through these. Something to do with podcasts has come up a lot recently, but hadn't before. Look at this one. I've made a dent in the world, and due to the work that I've been doing, we have helped millions of people be happier and healthier. See, that's a bit airy fairy, that one. I like to try and be specific with them. I used to have it with like so I'd have students I was teaching music and music business and music performance for a few years, and students would always come in. Here's one that might help you, that might benefit your viewers. Students would always come in and I'd go, right, what do you want to do? You could read it like a book, what they were going to say. So they'd come in with a guitar on their back and they'd say, I want to be a session musician. And I'd go, right, okay, I need more specifics. Why? Okay, first of all, why do you want to be a session musician? Well, because I love music. Right, okay, do you understand what it entails to be a session musician? Well, yeah, like I just play, in the studios. Okay, right, cool. So we're getting somewhere, buddy, but like we need to double down on this and get a bit more specific. And the reason being is I can help you. If you tell me specifics, I can point you in the right direction. I can help you with a bit of a roadmap, whatever it is. And so I'd say, right, okay, where do you want to be a session musician? Who do you want to work with? What's your salary? How many sessions are you doing a year? Are you going to have a family? Could be anything, right? And they'd start ticking over, and then they'd be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'd like to work at this place. Yeah, let's just put it out. Let's say Abbey Road. I want to work at Abbey Road. Right, okay, cool. So what's your next move? I don't know. I just need to practice. Well, yeah, but then no one's going to know who you are if you just practice. So we need to network as well. You probably need to market yourself a bit as well, or get a team in. What, a team? How am I going to get a team in? Well, then you need some money, don't you? And you need some startup. Then you need some, like, whatever it is. And the thing is, I try and be specific myself now, because for years and years, for some years, I was writing my goals, or I was having these sort of like big dreams where I'd be like, all right, cool. I want to make 10 million quid. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. I mean, I have to reverse engineer that to try and work out what I would do with that 10 million quid. Like now I'll be so much more like, right, I want this for this amount because this is what I'm going to do with it. And this is how I'm going to, this is what's going to change about this thing, or whatever it is. I try and be specific. So I find that quite handy. If anyone is listening and you're struggling with anything as far as hitting a goal, I would say micro goals for the daily, macro goals for the big win, and be specific. Because what happens in life is if you say right now, right, I'm at A and I want to get to B, whatever the hell B is. It might be viewership of your podcast. It might be that you want to buy a new car. It might be that you want to go traveling. It might, whatever it is, that B. So you're at A and you want to get to B. The thing that people always forget in life is that as the crow flies line between the two of them, everything, and I mean everything, will try and pull you off of that line. Your job is to get back to the line every single time. So this is why self-development has really helped me out, because do you know Kevin Hart, that insanely successful comedian slash, the guy. So basically, he's got a couple of books out, and the second one, there's something he says in that which I really, really rate, and it's the first time I've heard someone explain it. If you haven't listened to either of his books, and I would really recommend you listen as opposed to read them, just because the way he executes is insane. But he says something, and he says, look, it's along the lines of this. I won't articulate it as well. But he's like, the thing is, mate, he definitely doesn't say mate. Thing is, what you want to do is, he said, I'm going to keep telling you the same thing over and over and over again, and you're going to get bored of hearing it. But the point is, I'm not telling you it because I can't think of other stuff. I'm telling you it because every time you go wayward or you go walkabout or whatever it is you're doing, I'm pulling you back. I'm getting you back over here. Because you know why you started this thing, because you want to get from A to B. It's not how he explains it, but it's how I'm explaining it. You want to get from A to B. So you need someone that's like, mate, come on. A personal trainer does the same thing. They don't just randomly turn up once every few months and go, right, cool, let's do some push-ups. It's daily. They're like, right, daily, this is what we need to do every single day. I'm going to tell you the same thing. Push-ups again. Yes, push-ups again. Do them. Do you know what I mean? And it's those little chips away at certain things over and over, and then it compounds, and then it turns into something frigging powerful. I love that. Absolutely love that. I apologize for waffling. How are you, man?
Fine. Like I said, it makes you a good podcast guest. If you could, what I was going to say was, like, where's the best place for people to find you? So if you want to end with that, that would be good. But because we haven't spoken about the book as much, I did want to get your, like, if someone asked you, all right, you've got a book out, what would you say are the main lessons that you would want to teach someone from your book?
Okay, so the thing, it's quite weird at the moment, mate, because I'm recording the podcast, which is a version of the first book. There's a story behind why that's a free podcast and not an audio book, but probably a long story for now, so maybe another time. But it's quite weird at the moment because I'm recording the first book, which I wrote a few years ago, and I'm writing the second book in tandem. And obviously, like I said to you earlier, there's a bunch of things now where I'm like, oh, I don't necessarily agree with that anymore, or I've got a different opinion on it, or, oh, that was bang on point, I still believe that kind of thing. So what I've noticed is that the second book, I'll give you a mini heads up. The second book is something that I haven't seen done before, and it's something that I think is going to be really, really helpful for people. And the reason being is the first book is completely about motivation and mindset. I touch on other subjects like entrepreneurship, business acumen, health, fitness, R&R, like sort of meditation, looking after your body and stuff like that. I touch on those things, and the majority of the book is a gas up, like motivation. Let's get this going. Let's do this. Let's go kind of thing. The second book, I've realised, and this is something that I noticed from my missus actually. So my missus is into the same sort of stuff, but she doesn't realise it. So if she hears me listening to, say, so an audio book, for instance, of like, if I'm listening to just some geezer or some girl just snapping on an audio book, my missus is like, oh my God, I don't know how you do this. I don't know how you listen to this stuff. And in short, it's because I force myself half the time. I'm trying to educate myself. I want to learn. Sometimes I find it boring as hell. Sometimes I find it really frustrating, but I still try and push through. My point is that she's every now and again, she started doing this dog training course, which is awesome. And like, again, there's a whole nother story there. She's like the most amazing person in the world that doesn't know that she's the most amazing person in the world. She's had a terrible, terrible life. She was made homeless when she was like early teens, some really terrible, horrible stuff that's not for conversation now. And she's finally got to the point where she's like, no, do you know what? I'm feeling a bit more confident. I'm going to do something. And she's wanted to do this dog training course for years. And she's finally started doing it about a year ago, which is amazing. I'm so proud of her for it. And I absolutely love it. And so I hear some of the things she's listening to, some YouTube videos, for instance, and some of her course stuff on dog training. And the people that execute it the best are very similar to the people I listen to on podcasts or in the books I read, but they're coming at it from an angle that she can relate to. So they're coming from, you know, and she'll come off of some of these ones and she's like, oh my God, I feel really gassed up. Like I feel really energetic. And I never say it out loud because, you know, but you're doing the same thing. You're doing the same thing. You've just found a platform that makes sense to you. And you found someone delivering that. It's the relation. Good teachers don't need to be, all you need to do is relate to your students. That's all you need to do. If you can relate to them, if you can hit them on a level that they understand, you can teach them anything. You can teach a frigging 6'5" absolute tonk geezer ballet if you've got the right teacher, and they will love it and they will enjoy it, and vice versa on the other flip of that. Anyway, back to my point. So the new book, what I've done is I've brought in all of these elements. So there's a chapter on each of the things that I think is important for not just self-development, but anything. So there's stuff on finance in there, like how to do a tax return, how to, you know, run your bills, how to run your household, what is money, like understanding that. But I do all these things in a way that's like really easy, like proper bottom level for people that don't know, you know, don't understand it anyway. So stuff about money, entrepreneurship, business, but then also stuff about fitness and health and nutrition, also stuff about mindset, also stuff about marketing, also stuff about, so there's like all of these different things, but I'm coming at them from a really, really sort of basic level angle. And the idea being is that if you're just, for instance, into fitness books or cookbooks, let's say fitness books, right? And that's what you're into. Then you're missing out on a whole bunch of the rest of the puzzle, because you might be really fit, but your finances might be terrible. Or you read relationship books and your relationships are on point, but you're really unhealthy. Or you're really healthy and you've got loads of money. The first book, things that I would like people to take home from that, because I think that is what you asked, isn't it? What would be things that I would want people to know from that? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I missed a bunch of the puzzle pieces in that first book. So there's a lot missing. But if you're just taking it on face value, things that it will really help with, and that I think are the best parts about it, is one, the fact that you don't need to be any good at anything to start. I think I sort of, I don't know if the phrase is spoken like a true protege, but doing something absolutely horrendously is 100% better than doing nothing at all. And it's the idea of just start, man, just get going. The other thing I'd like people to take away from it is that there is a network of people out there, and there really is, who do think that you can do more than you can, and don't squash your dreams. They don't try and hold you back. They don't try and stop you from doing what you want to do. We're here. We're literally about. There's a bunch of us, and we want what's best for you, and we want to succeed in whatever that. And whenever I talk about success, I have to explain this, because I think some people think it is just monetary, but that's not what I mean. As a successful human, I mean, you're happy, your relationships are good, you're healthy, you're fit, you're in tune, you're in shape, your business is good, or your progress is good in what you're doing, like every part of it. Do you know what I mean? Whole rounded kind of thing. And then I think the third thing I'd like people to take away from the first book is I don't actually swear as much as I do in the book. I didn't realize that was a thing. So that's not a really handy one for people to take away, but it is true. I wrote that book. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, honestly, it's so hilarious. So me and I have an employee. There's just two of us for the book stuff, and I wrote it and edited it. She went through it a couple of times. We got it up on Amazon. We got a bestseller within the first 2 weeks. So we hit #1 on Amazon in the first 2 weeks. No marketing spend, bootstrapped the whole way. We've been approached by Waterstones, so they're going to stock the book, which is amazing. And like, I have no idea how this is happening. Like, we got featured on BBC One on the news, because I do a non-for-profit club called the 100 Club, which is like a group for 16 to 21-year-olds, teaching all the stuff that I sort of do, outside of this, like similar kind of stuff. And like we've just, so that book, if you read that book, if any of your listeners read that book, I think there's if I'm being really honest, I think that there's a level of sincerity there that you don't get from published authors, because again, I'm not an author. I'm a lead doing the best I can with what I've got, if that makes sense.
Well, congratulations on that stuff anyway.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yeah. Would you write a book? Have you ever sort of written or anything?
Yeah, I've got a book out.
Have
Um,
you? I missed
and
that. How did I miss that?
I've just finished one actually, so it's being edited
How
currently.
embarrassing. I'm so sorry. Please link me up. I will absolutely read that.
It's okay. The last one came out last year, and that's a Google Ads
What's it
book,
called?
the No Nonsense Google Ads book. And I've just finished No Nonsense Business Principles, so that'll be out in the next month or so.
Love that. Oh, sick. Yes, I've got it here. Excellent. Oh, dude, that's so cool. I love that. And see, this is the thing. It's like, what? How awesome, right? You frigging wrote a book. It's like people say this to me sometimes, but it's. Did you find it hard, or did you just like what? Like, tell me about your book, please.
I don't. I don't enjoy writing. So, in the way that you say you're not an author, I probably can relate to that more than most people can, because I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't enjoy the process of sitting down and writing. So, what I actually did for especially the latest book was like I'd have these types of conversations, and then I'd grab parts of, let's say, paragraphs or sentences of something that I've spoken about, and I'd extract that, and the book is made up of essentially content that has been done like this. So,
Cool.
because I don't like just sitting down writing, um, and yeah, that's how the books were made anyway.
No,
What
nice. I
about you?
love that. Then this is going straight in my. There we go. Sorry, my internet's been rubbish. It's only just loaded. Love that. There he is, big boss. Excellent job, Tom. So I'm
Thank
just
you.
reading the. I don't know. Sorry, I'm reading the blurb while I'm on your show. That's really good. Sorry, I got. I will do this afterwards. I'm going to put that away. That's cool though, man. I love that. And you're literally just down the road from me. You're
Yeah,
wording,
yeah.
wording,
It's nice to speak to someone local.
mate. Well, to be fair, you've got the same weather that I've got at the moment, so it's a good day to be chatting as well.
Yeah, exactly. So
That's
Lee,
cool.
where is the best place for people to find you?
Well, it used to be probably the brothel. I'm joking, it wasn't. But I'm still funny. See, this is the thing. I'm trying to be funnier, and I can't ever pull it off. No, best place for people to find me. If you wanted to grab the book, you can on Scamazon. It's called. Can I swear? Can I call the book its name? It's called
Well,
Do It, Get It Done, but with SHs.
okay.
Do stuff, get stuff done. Or you can just Google my name, Lee Bridges, and it will come up because Maddie's been hitting that SEO like a good one. You can also find my podcast, which very quickly, like the thing that's quite frustrating is I much prefer having chats with people, and I'm normally on the other side of it. So when I do my sessions with people or one-on-ones, it's me asking questions. So I really appreciate you giving me a platform to just waffle my head off. I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, I've
But
enjoyed
it's
it.
been quite frustrating in some respects because the podcast I'm doing is I'm reading the book. So it's not your normal kind of conversational podcast. So I'm very much looking forward to getting to the point where we've completed that. And then I can start running like a podcast. But yeah, if you want to check out the podcast, you can on it's on all of the stuff: iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, Anchor, all of that stuff. You can also find me on Instagram, Lee Bridges, or Drum Hacker if you want my music account. Apart from that, don't really know, mate. I'm in a bunch of places. Yeah, just Google my name; it will come up. There was this guy. So I'm really happy. So Maddie's been hitting the SEO with the 1,000,001 jobs that she's got to do. But for up until very recently, if you Googled Lee Bridges, it would come up with the guy called the Cannabis Poet, and he was this dude that just writes poetry. Hi. So I've finally overtaken him in the SERPs. So it's it's maybe a good day. Maybe I might do thinking out loud. But yeah, thank you so much, mate. I very, very much appreciate you having me on.
It's my pleasure, and I've got quite a way to go before I get to the top of Thomas Green. Let me tell you.
Mate, well, this is it. What's the plan? What are you going to do?
I'm not worried about it. I don't really care. I just think it's interesting, like especially if someone touches for like Tom Green. Like I've got quite a lot of work to do before I get that one.
Oh, sorry. You meant SEO wise. Sorry, I thought you were talking about the podcast. Oh, right. Yeah. Well, no, this is the thing. I don't think it's necessarily something to care about. And I suppose you're up against it with the other Tom Green, right? So He's been around a little bit longer, I guess. But I don't know what he's doing now. I haven't seen him do anything for a long time.
He went on Joe Rogan, so you mentioned Joe, so he's on there recently. But,
is he? Oh, I must have missed that one. I haven't seen that. The thing with Rogan's podcast which I imagine is what everyone loves. I just love the long play. I really struggle with I will stop waffling, but last point for me is I really struggle when you get a snippet, the news do it, as a marketer, you'll know what I'm on about. So you'll take a thing, but there's no real depth behind it. And I love, this is why podcast is so awesome. I just love getting behind people. For instance, Kanye West, for years and years and years, stupidly without actually knowing anything about him, I just had that thing in my head where I was like, what a douchebag, like what an absolute idiot. And then I listened to him on Rogan. I came out, there was a few things he said where I was like, oh mate, really? But a lot of it, I was like, oh my God, like you're really trying to do something here. And that's awesome. And you never get given that opportunity or that platform. So yeah, it's all about the long play. Big discussion. Love that.
Good. Lee Bridges, thank you very much.
Mate, Tom, you're an absolute G. Very much appreciate your time, buddy.